All right, what's up everyone? This is Don with Third Creative, and this is the walkthrough tutorial video for lineup baseball and softball. In this video, I'm going to thoroughly go through all the layers, the processes, and hopefully cover anything and everything that you might need to know in order to create the best images possible using this design. This is a baseball and softball specific design, and like my other template bundles, you'll get 10 files. It includes 3 verticals, so you have a 2x3, a 4x5, and a 1x2. It includes, let's see here, 5 horizontal files. So you've got your 5x4 for your team, 5x4 for memory mates, 2x1, 3x2, and the panoramic 3x1. The last 2 files are both 1x1s. One is for your buttons, the other is set up for game day images. I did mention that this is for both baseball and softball, so I have included specific elements for both sports. On the left, you'll notice that I have a grass infield, so it's very subtle, but it is there, and you have the option to use grass if you're creating for baseball, and you can turn on the dirt infield option if you are creating for softball. Same thing for the ball seams that you see here at the bottom. They're built-in options. You just turn them on, turn them off. So you've got baseball seams and you have softball seams. You'll also notice that I've got 2 varied or different font schemes. So there is an alternate font option that is built in that is the script font. So if you like that look a little better, it's already in there. You just turn on the one that you want to use and start customizing. But just like any template, you have the option to use any font that you want. So if your team has specific fonts that match their logo and their uniform, you can go with that. Or if there's just another font that you like better, you can do that as well. There are a few sample images that I created. You'll notice that they are all grayscale or black and white background. This design is intended to remain grayscale or black and white for the background, and your color is going to come from your text layers and your subject, of course. But you can see I've got a few softball and baseball images here. Just kind of give you an idea of what a few color variations might look like. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into it. We are going to be working with a 4x5 vertical file. Just keep in mind that everything that we go over translates to the other files as well. There are some unique things about some of the other files, of course, but generally everything translates across the board. So I always like to start at the bottom. We have a folder here entitled Background Layers. We're going to open that up, and we're going to go all the way to the bottom. I do have a color overlay for background color. I thought about just leaving this white, but if any of you are skilled and adventurous and want to attempt to make it a different color, you can double click here and select a color, but you can see, it just doesn't look quite right. You'll need to play with blend modes and do some things. So more than likely you'll just leave that alone. Next you have your options for your field in the background. So by default, baseball is turned on. If you are creating for softball, just simply click the little eyeball icon here to turn it off, and click right here on the softball option to turn it on. Very simple, very easy. I have them both in a folder that has a layer mask on it, and I have the layer mask turned off, but I'm gonna explain that if you hold down Shift and click here to turn it on, you can get an even more washed out, faded look if you want to. Totally up to you, but it is there. It's off by default. Next we have scuffs texture. So if you look down here, you can kind of see these little scuff marks. I felt like it needed something in there. It's got a layer mask over it, so it doesn't apply towards the entire background, but you can turn it off, turn it on. It does have a color overlay, so if you were to turn that on, you could change it to a more brown, which you can see that I have here. Clicking on the word color overlay, if you're not already familiar, brings up your layer styles, and I already have color overlay selected, and this little icon here will bring up your color picker where you can play around with the colors if you want to. Otherwise, more than likely you're going to want to leave that off and allow it to match the grayscale background. Next, we have our softball seams option, which is off by default. Just above it you have the baseball. So if I turn the baseball off, I can click below it here to turn the softball on. It's as simple as that. And next we have an exposure vignette, and this is pretty common with most of my templates. It's pretty subtle. If I turn it off, you'll notice the corners will brighten up or lighten up, so maybe you like that. A vignette generally helps draw attention in towards your subject image. If you want to increase the effect, there's two ways you could go about that. You could double click this icon here, and it should bring up your properties window where this top slider is going to control how much of the effect. So you can decide what the sweet spot is, but as you can see, you can get a little carried away with it. So just be careful there. The other option is to select, well, I guess you can select either the mask or the layer itself, but you can see that it extends out wide. You can bring these in closer if you want to have a more prominent effect, and then adjust this. So those are two ways you can adjust a exposure vignette to your liking, but by default it's going to look like this. And what else do we have? We have a grain texture. So if I were to zoom in towards the background, you can see the grain is there, and if you turn it off, it's just a lot smoother. I would say a lot cleaner, but that makes it sound like it's better without it. I'll let you be the judge, but it's totally up to you if you use. Now it is a smart object, so you can click on this add noise to reduce the value. You could get really carried away, but you get the idea. And that is it for the background layers. Pretty simple. There's not a lot to do there other than just making sure you have the right field turned on and the right ball seams turned on. Most likely that would be all that you would need to do in there. Let's get this zoomed back out. There we go. Next we have our upper and lower patch layers. So you can see at the top there's a leather patch, the bottom there's a leather patch, excuse me. Let's turn it off. You can see it goes away. There is a drop shadow that is applied. It's not really visible on the bottom one because of the direction, but it is visible on the top one, so you can see that there. We'll open it up. It's pretty simple. The bottom one, I have a sample logo. It is specific for this team, but I thought that would be a good place to put your team logo. If you don't have a team logo, you could just put a text layer over there with a W with a font that's already included, or one that matches your team. You could put the year down here. You can really put anything that you want, but the logo is clipped to this, so if I were to extend it, it doesn't show beyond the edges of the patch. So you can scale and position it how you like it. Now I did use hard light for this one, and so if you notice the leather grain kind of shows through. If you just put your logo on it and you leave it normal, you know, at a distance it probably isn't going to look bad, but you can play around with blend modes to find one that you like. As you can see, a lot of these would work, but by default I have this one at hard light just so that some of that texture will show through. Here I have the lower leather patch, and I have below it the upper. So if we kind of scroll up here, I have the year. Again, you can put anything you want here. You can turn one off and leave on the other, turn them both off, however you want to set it up. But the year is a text layer, so just double click on this T to activate it. If it's a different year, you can type it. Well, got heavy fingers there. You can type it in. Changing the color for any text layer, double click it, You've got your contextual toolbar up here, so you could change the color there. You've got it up here. Of course, you also have it in your properties and your character. So many places to change the color. Let's say we want to go with red, whatever color matches. Very simple. There is a stroke outline, so you could turn it off if you didn't want it. You can leave it on. You can double click the word stroke, and here you could change the color. Of course, you can adjust the size, so if you want it to be more prominent or less prominent, you can play with those values there. We'll hit cancel to leave it like it is. So that's it for the patch layers. I thought it was a nice, just a nice accent, a nice extra touch. There is one other thing that I will cover on both of these. There is a hue saturation, and they're turned off, but if you want to colorize these other than like a natural leather, like I can zoom in here so we can get a better look, turn on the hue saturation, and let's see, that's the bottom one. Need to do the right one. Okay, so I have it set up for blue, but you can double click the hue saturation to bring this up, and it's colorized. And so if you just want plain black and white, you can drag the saturation slider all the way down. You could even adjust the lightness and darkness a little bit if you want to, but if you want color, you want to bring that saturation up, and then you can use this slider to find a color that fits what you want. So maybe you want a green, maybe you don't want it that saturated, maybe you want a little darker. You can just play with these sliders. Once you get it how you want it, you basically just need to memorize or write down these three values so that you can click OK and come up to the next one and enter those same values in these three fields so that they match. But that is optional. More than likely you could just or would just leave it this color because it kind of resembles the color of the actual glove or mitt that they would use. And that is it for the upper and lower patch layers. So let's keep it moving. We've got our upper text layers. So let's take a look at what's in here. We're going to open it up, and I've got a subfolder down here that contains two font options. So the one by default, you can see here, Sampton. Something I like about this font is it's a font family, and over here, so in your character panel, you can see we have Sampton, but if you click on this, you can see all of the different options. Now you can get extra extended bold, and it's probably not one you're going to want to use because it's just too wide, but you've got all of these different weights and widths. You can go super narrow. I think by default I have condensed bold. More than likely you would leave it at that, but you've got options there, so keep that in mind. Just like any other text layer, you can change the color in your character panel, your contextual toolbar, properties, anywhere. So we'll just click on that and demonstrate that you can do that. It has a stroke outline, so you can see it's kind of a thick white. So if you double click on the word stroke, you can change the color if you want to. You can change the size. It also has an inner shadow, so you can kind of see right up here. This inner shadow just adds a little bit of dimension. So that's pretty much it for that. Once you type in your team name, you may have to click on an anchor point, hold down Shift and Option or Alt if you're on PC to scale it up, scale it down. And you can scale it to your liking. You can click inside to move it around and position it how you want it. The other option is to turn this one off and turn on your script, which everything is the same. You know, it's just a different font. So you change the colors and the stroke the same way. So that's an option now. Turn this one back on. The subtext here for the sport, so I have baseball, I have this one turned on, which is the script font. It's the opposite of the team name. There is an alternate which basically is the same two fonts, And so actually I'll put that one back because it lined up well with the script. So I like this combination here, and if you don't do that, you can turn them off and go with this combination. But these are just text layers. You only change the color, and you might have to change it to say softball. Very simple, double clicking and just typing over it. You can of course scale it up and down here, and then of course you can always go to your character panel and increase the values and decrease the values that way to get it how you want it. Of course, moving it around, you may have to reposition these because every team name is a little bit different. But I already kind of talked about it, but basically between scaling it like this and choosing the width and the weight that you want to use, you can come up with something that looks good and that fits the space. I have a few layers clipped to the primary font here or text layer that is for your team. So I'm going to zoom in so you can kind of see what's going on here, because you may need to make some changes with this. I discovered when I was making my sample images that sometimes it just needed some changes, but I will explain. This is a grunge texture, so you can kind of see inside. It's kind of dark. If I turn it off, that goes away. We'll turn it back on. That one's pretty simple. You may want to increase or decrease the opacity if you want it to be less prominent depending on the color that you choose for your text. You can also play with the levels adjustment by double clicking here and adjusting the contrast if you feel that it needs it. But the other ones, actually this one is pretty simple. It's a shine layer that I created to put on there. So you can see how it almost appears like a gradient. It's lighter at a diagonal. So if you turn it off, it'll just be all one color. This just kind of makes it look a little shiny, or maybe like it's a little wavy. It's an option that you have. You can leave it on or turn it off, or you can reduce the opacity if you want lesser of an effect. If you want greater of an effect, you could right click and where is duplicate? I always use shortcuts on my keyboard, but duplicate the layer, and you want to make sure that they remain clipped. So I'm going to clip those back, and you get even more of the effect, but totally up to you. These next two are the ones that I want to really touch on and to kind of explain, because they're basically like dirt. If I open these smart objects up, you can see it's like dirt, and I had to change the blend mode. I went with darken, so another blend mode that might work is multiply. Multiply or darken, basically just make sure that the white doesn't show and only the darker. But it is brown, and it doesn't necessarily look good on all of them. So if you don't want it to be brown, turn on these hue saturations on both of them, and it should desaturate them. Actually, we'll turn that on. Should desaturate them. So if you don't want the brown look, you can just turn those on to adjust them. I had to do that on a few of my sample images. It looks really good with this color combination, but it didn't look good with every color combination that I went with. And that's it for the upper text layers. We'll close that up, and we're almost done. We've got our subject image folder. So if you open it up, you can see you have your sample subject image in here. We'll turn them off, turn them on. You should probably already know this. You're either using automation, so you're not doing this, or if you're doing it manually, you basically drag and drop your subject in here. Make sure that he falls in this folder. So if he lands anywhere else, you just click on it, hold down, drag. You see that the folder is highlighted, let go, and it falls inside this folder. And then you would simply click on one of these anchor points, hold down shift. You can scale up and down, click inside, move them around, and scale and position them to your liking. Pretty simple there. There is a layer mask. I pretty much cover this in all of my tutorial videos, so if you watched them before, you're already familiar with this. But this layer mask, I actually did it a little bit different. It's not just a gradient mask. It's a little harder to tell on this because it's black and white, but if we come back here, you can see on her pants, it's kind of a foggy, dusty look rather than just a gradient. So if you want to adjust this but still retain that look, you can click on this little chain link to unlock the layer mask. Now, if you want it higher or lower, you would just, with the layer mask selected, you would come over here and click and hold on one of these anchor points. You can drag it up, you can drag it down, or you can move it up and move it down just a little bit. But if you move it up too much, it'll start to show at the bottom. But that is a way to kind of adjust it. Of course, you can always just go with a gradient. If you don't like this foggy, smoky look, select your layer mask, click on your gradient tool, come up here and make sure that you have black to white or white to black selected, and you can just click and drag. And you just want to be careful because, as you can see, the background will start to show, so you don't want to come up too high, but somewhere in there you can go that route as well. And that's just something that you need to know, is how to create and adjust gradient layer masks, because when you're building your team images and you're making rows, you know, the default setup isn't always going to work for you. That's it for the subject folder. Next we have our lower text layers. Let's take a look. I'm going to open that up. I have this highlight clipped to this folder, and it basically makes it a little lighter at the top. So if I turn it off, you can see what happens to the text. So if you like that effect, you can leave it on, but that is why I had to create another subfolder, because it has a color overlay on here. Basically they don't work. If I had this color overlay on this folder and clip something to it, you wouldn't see what it's clipped to. I'm probably over explaining, but if you open this up and you're wondering why is there a folder inside a folder, trust me, there's a reason for it. If you want all of this to be the same color, just turn this color overlay on right here, this eyeball. Then you can double click the word color overlay, and then all you have to do is pick the color that you want, and it just blanket applies to everything. If you want anything to be different colors, you want to leave that off, and you'll just need to do it independently. So we have our player name, and you know, we've already touched on how to change that. You just double click, type over it, simple as that, unless you're using automation, of course. I have these subfolders set up for the classification, so there might be a little bit of work involved here, but if you leave it like this, you can just turn them on, turn them off according to the grade that they're in, or you could even change what it says. Totally up to you. I understand not every baseball team is a high school team, so it may not always apply. But if you open them up, you can see there's two layers. One is for your text layer, the other one is this little accent that I created. It has a color overlay, so you can change the color by clicking on the word color overlay. Same thing for the text, you can control those independently. So you may have to go through initially and set up all the colors how you want them before you get going. Otherwise, you can just use the blanket color up here. Hopefully all of that makes sense. I think that's it. I will say, if you change what it says here and it doesn't fit in the space, what you can do is come down to the accent layer and click on this chain link to unlock the layer mask. That's basically all it is. If I turn this layer mask off, you can see it goes all the way through. So if you do that and you unlock it and you select the layer mask and you have your move tool selected up here, you could drag this out, or in, and adjust the space that's available there. So probably not something that most of you will need to do, but if any of you do, that is how you would do that. And that is it. So pretty simple. Not a lot to customizing the colors. I think you should be able to get in and get out pretty quickly on this one, which is always a good thing. So that's it. We'll wrap this one up. I'll get started on the next one. Hopefully I've answered or covered anything and everything you might need to know. And as always, if I did not and you still have questions, feel free to shoot me an email, don@thirdcreative.com. But that is it. Thank you for watching. I hope this template serves you well. And until the next one, we'll see you.